When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. See, that would have messed some of y'all up right there. The moment your boo thing would have told you they were coming over to the house to hook you up. And you said, what did you get? What did you get? Is it Louis Vuitton? Is it Gucci? Is it Chanel? No. I got you some of that frankincense and myrrh. Some of y'all would still be tripping. Verse 12. And having been warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. That's the verse where I really want to pitch my tent. That after they gave their gifts to Jesus, they were warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod. The Magi left for their own country by another way. I want you to turn to your neighbor and shout to them, they went home a different way. Got a neighbor on the other side, shout to them, they went home a different way. Amen. You may be seated in the Lord's presence. That's what I want to talk about this morning. They went home a different way. Several days ago, I had to have an MRI. That's one of those high-powered x-rays where they slide you into the tube and they check you all over. I had that MRI done for several reasons. One of the reasons I needed the MRI so that I can stay current on all of my health concerns. The other reason I had that MRI done is because I'm coming down to the close of the year and my medical benefits will start over next year. So I needed to have everything done that I could get done. While I was there, the technician said to me, Mr. Thorpe, what kind of music would you like to listen to? We finally settled on either gospel or contemporary Christian. The technician said to me, Mr. Thorpe, at this time of the year, they have taken off all of the regular gospel or contemporary Christian songs, and they have replaced them with Christmas songs. I said to him, brother, that's the same thing. Because if Christmas is not about Christ, it ain't about nothing. When you talk about Christmas, you're talking about Jesus Christ, born in Bethlehem, hidden in Egypt, raised in Nazareth, baptized in the Jordan, crucified on Calvary, but resurrected on Sunday morning. There's just something about the name of Jesus Christ. And what I want to do this morning is to snatch a page from the life of Jesus Christ to prove or to demonstrate just how practical it is to follow the Lord Jesus Christ. You see, Minister Doug, one of the difficulties we have in reaching people for Christ is we tell them about things that Jesus can do for them when they die. I don't need a Savior who can only do things for me when I die. I need a Savior who can do some stuff for me tomorrow evening. I need a Savior who can do some things for me tonight. So, Kalia, I needed a Savior last night. I recently moved downtown, and one of the things I decided to do, because parking near the downtown restaurants is so bad, I decided, this is going to catch some of y'all by surprise, I decided that rather than getting in and out of my car to go to all of those different places, that I would get me, with my 46-year-old self, a kick scooter. Some of y'all know what a kick scooter is. It's a skateboard with handlebars on it, and you put one foot on it and you kick it And then it takes off from there. Now, mine is electric now. I'm not just skateboarding around downtown. Mine is electric. I put my hands on it, put my left foot on it, I kick with my right foot, and off that thing goes. And I was fine until I got to the restaurant. And then my body reminded me, boy, you ain't used this knee in a long time. The way you try. I was standing in that restaurant rubbing that knee so bad, wondering how in the world am I going to make it back home with this raggedy knee I done used to bring me all the way here. I need a God who not only takes care of me when I close my eyes, I need a God who will take care of me when my knee is messed up from riding a kick scooter. Wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. And Matthew chapter 2 allows us to snatch a page from the life of Jesus Christ that proves how practical it is to have a relationship with him. This is not the little baby Jesus in Matthew chapter 2. This is the little boy Jesus. He's around the age of 2 years old by the time you get to Matthew chapter 2. At the birth of Jesus, shepherds came who were abiding in their fields, and they were able to see the baby Jesus lying in a manger. Well, by the time you get to Matthew chapter 2, these wise men or magi from the east, they didn't come to see the baby Jesus. By the time they arrived, he was the little boy Jesus. They knew from their relative knowledge of Scripture that Jesus was to be born King of the Jews. So they decided that if you want to find the King of the Jews, you should go where the King of the Jews hangs out. So they go to the region of Judea into the city of Jerusalem, and they inquire, where is he who is to be born King of the Jews? What they did not know is that the current king of the Jews was a madman named Herod, who had a long history of destroying even his own people. So when Herod got word that they were looking for another king, he felt threatened that someone was trying to overtake his kingship. He then consulted with all of his religious leaders and those who were scholars in the Old Testament scriptures. And he wanted to know where this king of the Jews was supposed to be born. They searched the scriptures and concluded that Jesus is to be born in the lowly city of Bethlehem. So Herod said to the wise men in private, I want you to go to Bethlehem, and when you find that baby Jesus, bring me word so that I can come and worship him too. Worship was really the furthest thing from his mind. He only wanted to know where Jesus was so that he could destroy him. You know what that means? Herod was a hypocrite. A hypocrite is a person who wears a false face. They look one way on the outside, but they look totally different on the inside. The evangelist Ron Herod said that he would rather be hugged by 100 drunk people than to be hugged by one hypocrite. He said drunk people, when they hug you, all they want to do is tell you how much they love you. Man, I love... Man, some of y'all are far too familiar with what drunk people do. I just want to hug you. I just want to love on you. Dr. Herod says that hypocrite will hug you trying to find a soft spot to put a knife. And the only reason Herod wanted to know where Jesus was is so that he could destroy him. But thankfully, these wise men, after they had given their gifts to Jesus, at some point they fall asleep, and God speaks to them in the midst of their dreams, and he tells them to go home a different way. Look at what you find in verse 1 through verse 3 of Matthew chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. All the people of Jerusalem knew how diabolical of a man Herod was. Watch what you find beginning in verse 4. Herod then gathered all of his chief priests, all of those who were skilled in the law, and to find out from them where Jesus was to be born. When you get down to verse 6, it is revealed that Jesus was to be born in Bethlehem in the land of Judah. That was an Old Testament quotation from the book of Micah chapter 5 and verse 2. Yet, by the time you get to verse 12, after they had given their gifts to Jesus, they fell asleep, and the Lord spoke to them and said, "Don't go back home the way you came. Go home another way." Here's the first theme that I believe is contained in this text. The first practical application that you need to take home with you, especially as you celebrate this holiday season. You need to recognize that God can solve some supernatural problems in some natural ways. See, some of us only think that God can work miracles, but sometimes God can work miracles through some ordinary or common means. You've all heard the story of the man who was in a hurricane, and as flood waters were rising, he was praying in his house for the Lord to deliver him. The water got so bad until he went into the attic. The waters kept on rising. He climbed up on top of the roof, and he said his faith was so strong that God was going to deliver him. Not long after, as he was standing on the roof, a boat came by, and the fella in the boat threw out a rope to him in order to save him, but the man said, "No, I don't need your rope. The Lord is going to save me." Not long after that, a ship came by, and the ship blew its whistle and announced over the intercom, "We have come to save you." The man responded, "No, I don't need no ship. The Lord is going to save me." The water kept on rising, rose all the way up to his neck. Finally, a helicopter came by and lowered down a ladder. The man pushed the ladder away and said, "I don't need a helicopter or a ladder. The Lord is going to save me." He drowned and got all the way to heaven and said, "Lord, I'm disappointed in you because I told everybody you were going to save me." The Lord said, "I tried. I sent a boat, I sent a ship, and I sent a helicopter. And you didn't get on either one of them." God can take some supernatural problems and he fixes them often in some natural ways. You read later on in the text, by the time you get to verse 13 down through verse 23, God also speaks to the earthly father of Jesus, whose name was Joseph, and he said, "Joseph, don't go back to your homeland. Take your family into Egypt. Live there until the man who wants to kill you has died." Now, could God have struck Herod to death and allowed that to be the end of it? Yes, he could. But the Lord does not always fix supernatural problems in supernatural ways. Sometimes he fixes supernatural problems in some natural ways. You got a bad headache, you can pray. If I have a bad headache, I'm going to pray while taking Tylenol. I got a pain in my body, I'm going to pray. Ooh, I'm going to pray. I'm going to call on Jesus on my way to the doctor's office. Wish I had somebody who knew what I was talking about. The IRS sends me a letter in the mail. I'm going to pray on my way to a tax attorney and a financial planner. Why? Because I recognize that God can solve some supernatural problems in some very natural ways. That's not all you find in this text. A second practical application from Matthew chapter 2 is this. God can deliver some important messages in some uncommon or unpopular ways. God can deliver some important messages in some unpopular ways. I find it strange, Brother Rick, in reading Matthew chapter 2 and in sections of Matthew chapter 1, that all of these people that God kept speaking to, he spoke to them in dreams. Rarely do you hear about God, especially in this modern age. We so busy trying to get Benny Hinn to wave his coat over us. We so busy trying to get some oil. We so bad now, we done stop putting it in little bitty bottles. We got them in spray bottles. Folks walking around church with cans of olive oil Spam, just spraying. Are you cooking biscuits or praying for the saints? In Matthew chapter 2 and verse 12, how did God speak to the wise men? He spoke to them in a dream. Look at verse 13. Now when they had gone, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph. How? In a dream, and said to him, get up, take the child and his mother, flee into Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him. Over and over and over again. You see it in 12, you see it in 13, you see it in 19, you see it in 22, that God spoke to them in dreams. It was an unpopular way, but God often delivers important messages in unpopular ways. Well, Thorpe, can you push it a step further? I'll do the best I can. Sometimes God speaks in the daytime. When you read the angel's message to Mary in Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through verse 38, he spoke to Mary, the virgin mother of Jesus. He spoke to her during the daytime. Can you handle that? God often speaks during the daytime. A second reality is sometimes he speaks in the nighttime. All throughout the text, all the verses we just looked at earlier in Matthew chapter 1 was not God speaking in the daytime, it was God speaking in the nighttime. Do we know one another well enough for me to ask you a rather probing question? Is your mind clear enough to hear God at either time? Some of us, our minds are so jacked up, we couldn't hear God at noon or at midnight. Okay, anybody willing to be, don't raise your hand, don't raise your hand. But somebody in here is willing to be honest that you struggle in discerning the voice and the will of God. Somebody right now, you're in the midst of making a very important decision, and you're struggling on whether or not it is the voice or the will of God. Ray done call you up. You ain't talked to him in 6 months. Ray done laid some stuff on you so thick. Girl, I've been praying for you all these months. And the Lord dropped you in my spirit. So I was sitting here reading the scriptures. And I just want to know if you can find it in your heart to give me another chance. You can already, God will show you all kind of signs that they're lying. Because one of the first things they're going to say is, listen. I forgive you for all the stuff you done to me. Hold on, cuz. You forgive me for the stuff I did to you when I'm the one who sent you to step it? Wrap your sandwich in a road map to tell you how to get from around here. You was just on my mind and the Lord told me that I should call you. The Lord dropped it in my spirit that you're going through something. And he dispatched me to be a prayer warrior for you. And you wondering, is it God? Is it them? Is it my flesh? Is it the devil? God can speak to you in the daytime, but he can also speak to you in the nighttime. My question to you is your mind clear enough to hear him at either time? That leads me to 2 recommendations I want to make to you, very practical recommendations, because I believe the Word of God is practical. Here's the first practical recommendation. Unplug regularly. Which means, ma'am, which means, sir, you've got so many voices trying to get at you from so many different directions until on a regular basis you need to unplug. So, Sabrina, something happened to me this morning that ordinarily would have caused me to have a miniature meltdown. I left home without my phone. At least 3 times since I've been here this morning, something has come up that ordinarily I would have used my phone to address. But you know what? I don't have my phone. I couldn't address it, so somebody else had to. Which means your life will go on without Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, Boost Mobile, Cox Cable. On a regular basis, ma'am, on a regular basis, sir, you need to unplug. Pastor, you don't understand. The world needs me. Get sick. See what happens. This world will, not only will this world roll on without you, this world will roll over you. You get sick, stay sick a week, and people say, I was trying to call you and I couldn't get you. Get sick, stay sick for 2 weeks. Man, I called you the other day and couldn't get you. Get sick and stay sick for 3 weeks, and the next thing you'll hear is people say you dead. This world will roll on without you, and it will roll on over you. Dr. Joel Cliff Gregory often speaks about the insomniac rooster. The rooster who would come out into the barnyard, and the rooster would crow, and the sun came up. What the rooster didn't recognize was the sun was going to come up regardless. It was the rising of the sun that made the rooster crow. But because he thought it was the reverse, the rooster decided that he couldn't go to sleep because he didn't want to oversleep to miss crowing, because he felt that if he didn't crow, the sun wouldn't come up. And some of y'all in here today, they had to commit him to the home for neurotic roosters. And some of y'all in here today are taking days, weeks, and months off of your life because you think this world can't move without you. You know what you need to learn how to do on a regular basis? Unplug. That means turn off the TV, turn off the radio, set aside the cell phone, turn off all those electronic devices, and just unplug. Because God may very well be trying to say something important to you, but you have so many other voices rushing in and out of your head that God can't even speak to you. You need to unplug regularly. Hey, can I give you another piece of very practical advice? You need to unwind daily. Unwind daily. Behavioral therapists teach that if you really want to have a good night's sleep, there's certain things you need to stop doing beginning 2 hours before bedtime. One of them is to stop consuming caffeine at least 2 hours before bedtime. Another one is you need to stop eating. This will sure help some of us. You need to stop eating 2 hours before bedtime. Clinical psychologists and behavioral therapists have identified that often your digestion keeps you up, especially with some stuff we eat. And we pack it all in there right before bed. Some of y'all do it on Monday night because church-wide we fast on Tuesdays. So some of y'all eat everything you can come Monday night like that's going to tide you over into Tuesday morning. God is saying, I don't know how to deal with them saints at faith. Another thing they recommend, this may come as a surprise, that you should not exercise within 2 hours of trying to go to bed. Some folks think that the more they exercise, the more tired it will make them, when the truth is exercise can release endorphins and chemicals into your system that make you more agitated and keep you from going to bed. Another one, which is a major one, 1 hour before bed, they recommend that you turn off all blue light electronic devices. That means cell phones, computers, laptops, televisions, because it is now clinically proven that there is something in the blue light produced by those electronic devices that can interfere with your sleep. You can also Google relaxation methods that will assist you in going to sleep. Pastor Thorpe, why is this so important? It is important because sometimes God speaks in the daytime, but at other times he wants to talk to you in the nighttime. And if your daytime mind is cluttered and your nighttime mind is cluttered, you won't be able to hear what God is trying to say. So you need to unplug regularly, and then you need to wind down daily. Let me just share this with you for free. Married couples with kids. This for free. Married couples with kids. Because a lot of times with married couples with kids, one spouse is frustrated because the child spends more time in the bed than y'all do. And some of us remember growing up where you had to be in the house when the street lights came on. And within 45 minutes, you had to be in the bed. It was not because they were concerned about how much sleep you got. They weren't trying to put you to bed for your benefit. They were concerned about the fact that after you got your homework done, they needed to get their homework done. Whole lot of wives are frustrated because daddy talking about, that's my baby, let her lay right here with us till she falls asleep. And she can stay here if she wants and stay here all night long. You snoring, the child snoring, and he wishing he could throw both of y'all out the bed. Y'all don't like me. God can solve some supernatural problems in some natural ways. God delivers some important messages in some unpopular ways. Here's the last thing, and I'm out. God can use some ordinary people in some extraordinary ways. Yes, he can. Hey, in Matthew chapter 1, verse 19, he uses men. In Matthew 1 and 19, he speaks to Joseph, and he says to Joseph, I know that you want to put Mary away privately. Now, you got to get in Joseph's mind. He's married to a young woman who's supposed to be a virgin, and then he gets word she's pregnant, and he know the baby ain't here. Now, you talk about a scandal. Mark Povich, Livia Pope, Jerry Springer ain't got nothing on this. When your fiance tell you she pregnant and God is the baby daddy, try putting that on the birth certificate. Mother of the child, Mary. Father of the child, Jehovah, the Most High God, King of kings and Lord. They say, beg your pardon? They look over at Joe and say, Joe, you all right with this? God uses men. He used a man named Joseph in Matthew 1 and 19. Not only does God use men, but God uses women. When you read Luke chapter 1, verse 28 down through verse 30, Luke says that the angel said to Mary that you are highly favored among women. God uses men and God uses women. These were not special men and women. They were ordinary men and women. But let me say one last thing that may mess with you some, but that ought to be your purpose when you come to church. Amen. To get messed with some. If you come to church every Sunday, don't nothing mess with you. With you. Is that a word? I think I've used that word twice in the last 2 Sundays. With you. Something ought to mess with you. I don't know what language it is. With you. Hey, here's the last thing. Not only is it true that God uses men and God uses women, here's the last thing. God uses money in the hands of men and women. God uses money in the hands of men and women. I wondered for years when I read Matthew 2, these 3 wise men knew they were coming to see either a baby or a young child. When they left home, they were coming to see a baby. Yet, they did not bring him rattles and Pokemon cards and Uno cards. They brought him 3 things: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Let me just throw this out for free so I can mess up the nativity scene you have on your front yard. First of all, if you got shepherds on one side of your nativity scene and then you got wise men on the other side, you have a confused front yard. Because the shepherds showed up at the moment of Jesus' birth. The wise men didn't show up until about 2 years later. When the shepherds showed up, Jesus was in a stable, wrapped in swaddling clothes, laid in a manger. When the wise men showed up, Jesus was in a house. So if you got both of them in your front yard, you have a confused front yard. You might as well have your heater and your air conditioner on at the same time, because that's just confusion. That's confusion. Here's another one. Here's another one. If you have 3 wise men in your nativity scene, don't think that your nativity scene is automatically biblical. The only reason people conclude that there were 3 wise men is because there were 3 gifts that were mentioned: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Could have been 12. All I'm saying is if you go to somebody's church and they're doing a reenactment of the birth of Jesus, and they got 3 wise men, don't jump on them. Because I'm just saying, it may not necessarily have been 3. In verse 11 and verse 15, you find some things that are very important, and I'm done. Here's verse 11. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshiped him. They worshiped him first. Then, opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Not Frankenstein, frankincense. Frankincense and myrrh were these aromatic gum resins. It would be the equivalent of the core ingredient of the finest perfumes. Not the perfume, but the core ingredient that made the finest perfume. This frankincense and myrrh were so aromatic and so pricely because a small amount of it could be reproduced and used to be a benefit to many different people. What I'm getting at is we understand how expensive and precious the gold was. You need to also understand how expensive and precious the frankincense and the myrrh were. They loaded Jesus up with that which could be converted into financial resources, because the baby couldn't do nothing with this. Jesus was not going to be walking around Bethlehem with a big old rope chain on, with a cross hanging on the end of it saying, one day I'm going to hang on one of them. That's not what they did with the gold. Drop down to verse 15. So Joseph got up and took the child and his mother while it was still night and left for Egypt. He remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. Here's what most scholars believe, that Mary and Joseph took the gold, the frankincense, the myrrh, sold it, converted it into cash, and used the cash to take care of themselves while they were on the run from the people who were trying to destroy them. Which means they didn't buy a jet. They didn't buy a new gold-plated chariot. They used their financial resources to provide them with peace and security. And if I could recommend anything to you during this holiday season, use your financial resources and get you some peace. Get you some peace. Pastor, I'm going to use all this money to make a down payment, and you're going to struggle making the payments? What good is the down payment if you can't make the payments? Pastor, I want this new car. Well, how much is the insurance going to be? I hadn't looked into that yet. Well, what you need the car for? Pastor, I'm going to buy this new car. It's a luxury car. I already wanted one. Can you afford the premium gas? Can you afford the maintenance on it? Because premium cars come with premium maintenance. You're going to get insurance. You say, I want to not get this. You get as much car as you can buy, and you get as little insurance as they'll say. Here's how you know when you messed up on your insurance. If your deductible is $2,000, ask yourself, do I have $2,000 now? And if you don't have $2,000 now, what makes you think you're going to have it when your car breaks down? You'd be better off to pay a little more each month to get a lower deductible so that when a crisis hits, you're able to respond to the crisis. What am I getting at, Pastor Thor? More than keeping up with your cousin, you need you some peace. Because you don't know how much peace your cousin has, driving around that big old car, living in that big old house. You don't know how much peace they have. I need peace. I'm 46. This is Kevin 2.0. This new version of me ain't studying stuff. All I need is peace. I don't need to be bothered. Amen. I don't need to be bothered. I can't sleep when it's hot. You got the heat on, a blanket on, socks on, covered all up to your neck. Rearrange your stuff. Pastor, it's hot outside. I need the air to be set at 65. And your light bill, you feed half the kids on your block with what you spend on a light bill. Get you a tank top. Get your bottle of Windex, empty it out real good when you're done with it. Run some hot water in it for about an hour so all the Windex gone. Put you some water in there. Get you a box fan. Whenever you get hot, spray yourself. Just spray it up high and get it high. And one or two things going to happen. Either you're going to get cool or you're going to get so tired that you go to sleep. Either way, you ain't going to know you're hot. And all the people said, God wants to give you peace. He wants to give you earthly peace. He wants to give you eternal peace. And you ought to let him do it today. We're standing all over this building.